So, for people in my generation, a lot of us kind of had our political awakening during Obama's presidency. For me, that was when I realized that, hey, maybe Democrats are bad too. And I was wondering, like, for you, when
It
would
was
you say that, huh?
it was Bill Clinton.
It was,
So yeah. So the thing about Bill Clinton was that he had such, monstrous enemies, right? So he was going up against people like Rush Limbaugh and the cretins like Newt Gingrich, and he was the one fighting for health care for you, and it seemed like he was on the right side of the things. But then I realized that Bill Clinton was no friend to the working man, and he did NAFTA, which George Bush the first could not get done. Only a Democrat could get NAFTA passed. George Bush the first tried to pass it, and the Southern Blue Dog Democrats wouldn't vote against it because of the unions and stuff. Well, Bill Clinton came in and gave them cover, so that cut the knees out from underneath unions forever since then. And so he did that at the same time he gutted welfare and exploded the prison population while deregulating the media at the same time, which took us from 50 giant media corporations down to 6. And then he also tried to privatize Social Security, and then he deregulated Wall Street. This guy was Ronald Reagan on steroids. That's when I was like, holy shit, the Democrats became worse Republicans than the Republicans. And then, of course, we got George Bush II, and all the Democrats went along with his imperialism. And, then we got Barack Obama, who was chosen by Wall Street, right? Because his cabinet literally came, because we know this because of WikiLeaks, his cabinet came from an email from Citigroup. And every person on that email made it into his cabinet. So and Barack Obama got more money from Wall Street than the Republican opponent, John McCain. So they knew you cannot become president unless Wall Street says it's okay. And this last time, Wall Street wanted Kamala Harris to be president. She couldn't get a vote, couldn't get a delegate. So they switched to the next most reliable tool, which was a demented Joe Biden. It didn't matter that he's demented. The establishment media is going to cover for him. Even the late night comedians haven't mentioned it. When I go on stage in comedy clubs now, I just go, so Joe Biden's demented. And then it gets a big laugh. And I go, I don't really have a joke for that. Don't need one. It's just to speak that truth, it gets a reaction out of people. That's a truth that we all have in our mind that no one will say out loud. And so they say Trump was the biggest liar. I think the bigger liar is giving us a demented person and saying he's running the country.
All good points.
I'll just tell you what Barack Obama did in a similar economic crisis. Barack Obama kicked 5.1 million families out of their houses so that Wall Street, and gave those houses back to the Wall Street banks he just bailed out. That's what Barack Obama did in a similar situation. When he had complete control of government, he gave us a right-wing healthcare plan that's nothing but a giveaway to big pharma and the health insurance companies, which is why once that Obamacare passed, their stock prices soared of the pharmaceuticals and the healthcare companies. He kicked people out of their houses. He was embedded. He ramped up. He took us from 2 wars to 7. He gassed those immigrants. He deported more Mexicans than all the presidents combined since 1890. He gassed immigrants at the border. You know why Trump had to ban Muslims at the airport? Because Barack Obama spent 8 years bombing them. Barack Obama bombed brown people so much he ran out of bombs. They literally ran out of bombs. That's your Nobel Prize winner. Nobel Prize winner who also had a kill list. That's kind of a contradiction. He built those cages those kids were in. There's fracking pipes underneath this country because he repealed the laws that prohibited exportation of that stuff. So this country is living in a neoliberal nightmare that Barack Obama brought us.
Yep.
And that's why we have Trump. So the people who were poor and couldn't afford health care before Obamacare still couldn't. It didn't help the poor, working poor at all because they couldn't afford the deductibles. So if they have a $10,000 deductible, they're not going to the goddamn doctor. So it didn't help change people's lives. We haven't had a raise in the minimum wage. The income disparity got greater during Barack Obama's time. And that's why you got Trump. It wasn't because of Russia. And it wasn't because of racism. There's always been racism. 3 out of the last 4 RNC chairmen have apologized for the Southern strategy, which is their racist strategy. This isn't something new, but the Democrats and the establishment media want you to think that racism just got invented and that's why Trump beat Hillary Clinton. No, Trump beat Hillary Clinton because people are hurting and they'll take a chance with a con man. That's why.
Yep. And I want to add to that Black wealth actually tanked under Barack Obama. And a lot of people don't talk about that. A lot of Democrats don't talk about that. We were better off before Obama than we were after Obama.
And he wouldn't even take marijuana and wouldn't even let people out of jail. He militarized the police. Barack Obama did. He didn't reform the criminal justice system. He made it even more racist. He made it even more militarized. He didn't help people who are in prison. We got slave labor from coast to coast, and everybody knows it. Right now, in California, they passed a law that said that you can't use private prisons for immigrants. Joe Biden is in court trying to overturn that. Right now, there's a law. There's a rule, an executive order that allows religious schools to discriminate against LGBTQ. Joe Biden is supporting that right now. He's not overturning it. He's supporting it. So this idea that you're a good person if you vote for Joe Biden is nothing but a fallacy. If you vote for Joe Biden, you're evil. You're voting for evil. And that's why I say if you have a conscience from here on out, you cannot vote for a Democrat or a Republican because they have proven that even the best of them, the squad, they will go along with Goldman Sachs, Eli Lilly, and Blue Cross Blue Shield and screw you over. Because that's what voting for them did. They go along with Nancy Pelosi. And who owns Nancy Pelosi? The oligarchs. So when you're voting for them, you're voting for oligarchs. The squad being inside the Democratic Party gives people the false notion that there's someone in government fighting for you, that there's a party that's on your side. That is not true. And I would like to disabuse people of that idea. That's actually worse having the progressives in the Democratic Party than not. If they weren't in that party, people would know for sure their government was their enemy and they would be looking elsewhere and to do other things. But right now they keep dangling that carrot. Oh no, AOC and Rashid Tlaib and Ro Khan, they're all working for you and fighting. Then Bernie Sanders, and they're not doing shit. They are doing the bidding of the oligarchs. Bernie Sanders is acting like Joe Biden is his boss, instead of being there and pushing him left and using his leverage and putting holds on bills. He won't do anything Joe Manchin will do for the people. But Joe Manchin can fight like that because he's fighting for his owners.
Agreed. Now, I know, Jimmy, I know some people have criticized you for talking to people on the right or talking to Tucker Carlson. I honestly feel like we need to talk to as many people as possible on both sides, especially when we want to talk to them about different policies, such as Medicare for all. I've talked to conservatives about Medicare for all. What do you say to people who feel like you shouldn't talk to people on the right?
So when I go on, when people criticize me for going on Tucker Carlson, it's just like people get mad at me because they don't like Tucker Carlson, right? And they think somehow I'm propping him up. I'm on Tucker Carlson because Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, and Chris Cuomo and Anderson Cooper aren't inviting me on. I would love to go on those shows and talk about Julian Assange. I would love to go on those shows and talk about the OPCW whistleblower scandal. I would love to go on those shows and talk about the anti-war message that I have. They're not inviting me on. They're not inviting people like me on. So if I get an opportunity to talk to half the country, and especially the president of the United States, because he used to watch that show, and I could advocate for Julian Assange, I'm going to do it. I went on Tucker Carlson's show the last time, and he admitted to me that it was based on the strength of my argument that he, the host of the #1 news show in America, changed his mind on Julian Assange. So now the people, half the country who watch this guy now are getting a different message about Julian Assange. That used to be the goal of lefties. That used to be the goal, was to change people's minds with the strength of your arguments. So that's why I go. It's easy to go and talk to an echo chamber. It's much more meaningful to go talk to the people and change hearts and minds, which is what my show does more than I think anybody else's. And so that's why, and And when people criticized me because I had a Boogaloo boy on my show and I interviewed him, I didn't endorse him. I just interviewed him. And so my haters, which are the people who support the Democratic Party, they conflated that into Jimmy's propping up the right wing. No, the Boogaloo Boys were invented as a counter to the Proud Boys. People were conflating the Boogaloo Boys and the Proud Boys. I found out through that interview that the Boogaloo Boys were set up as a counter to the Proud Boys, and that they were against the cops, anti-war, and they were pro-LGBTQ. And in fact, there's documented video evidence of the Boogaloo Boys providing security for Black Lives Matter protesters. All right. So that's what I did. And so people want to conflate that and twist it as to smear me. And that's exactly not what's happening. So and here's another thing people don't realize. When people say we have to organize along class lines, they don't realize what they're saying. Because if you're going to organize along class, I've been in unions, right? I've worked at UPS. But the way I was a bricklayer for 10 years, you don't organize like this. You don't go, hey, who here's a Trumper? You're out. Who here's a Proud Boy? You're out. Who here's a Boogaloo Boy? You're out. Who's a gun nut? You're out. Who's a libertarian? You're out. Who's left? Now I'm going to organize a union with you guys. That's not how unions work. So when you're organizing along class lines, that means organizing with people who voted for Trump.
Agreed.
People don't realize that. But people who voted for Trump are often anti-war. So you can work with those people. Just like Bernie works with right-wing senators on Yemen, you can work with those people on that goddamn thing. Most of those people are now for Medicare for all. You can work with those people. A lot of those people are anti-police brutality. You can work with those people. A lot of those people are pro-LGBT. I work with them on those issues. I don't work on them I don't believe in the gun right issue. I'm not with them. I'll try to change them. You change people with the strength of your arguments. You don't change people by not engaging. That's what George Bush and Dick Cheney used to do. They would have to say, we're not going to meet with our enemies until they meet our preconditions. Well, that's not how fucking negotiating works. That's why you meet to negotiate, because you disagree. So this idea that you're going to somehow get a big enough coalition of people, working class people, but you're going to get rid of half the country of working class people, that's not how organizing works. And that's what people don't want to admit. And so it's much easier to throw all your hatred onto Tucker Carlson, someone who has no power. He has no power in government. I mean, you want to throw all your on him, or you want to throw it on me. Go ahead. You can throw it. But in order to get anything done, when you say you're going to organize along class lines, that's what it means. And if you see me on Tucker Carlson, it should make you pissed off that I'm not on MSNBC and I'm not on CNN, because I would love to go on those shows. I'm not being invited. You know, TYT didn't even have Julian Assange's father on when he toured the country, right? So Julian Assange didn't go on CNN. He didn't go on MSNBC. He went on my show, and he went on Tucker Carlson's show. Why is MSNBC letting Tucker Carlson out-left them like that? Isn't that weird?
Very weird. Very strange.
So are they angry at Tucker Carlson's, at Julian Assange's father for going on the most watched news show in America to plead for clemency for his son? Is that wrong? Of course not. Of course that's not wrong. Shame on everybody else. Shame on Anderson Cooper. Shame on Chris Cuomo. Shame on Don Lemon. Shame on Rachel Maddow. Shame on fake tough guy Lawrence O'Donnell. Shame on those. That's what that is.
Agreed. Funny thing, I didn't even know, like back then, I didn't even know what a Boogaloo Boy was. Like when I first heard that, I was like, is this like Electric Boogaloo from the 80s? Like that movie?
Either did I. I had no idea. That's why I brought a guy on and we interviewed him. And it was surprising to hear the things that he said. Now, the things about the Boogaloo Boys is they're not cohesive. There's different factions. So he may have been only speaking for the faction that he was familiar with. And so, I said during that interview, I don't endorse the Boogaloo Boys. I'm not speaking on behalf of them. I'm just talking to this one guy today. And people completely conflated that because, you know, when you have haters, I mean, you see how I've been smeared because I was pushing for force the vote. So they smeared me. They called me head of the dirtbag left. I'm working with Nazis. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm this, that. The Newsweek did that. BuzzFeed did that. New York Magazine did that to me. Why? Because I was pushing for Medicare for all.
Agreed. How do you feel about Justice Democrats today?
We'd be better off without them. I tell people to stop donating to them. They give the people the wrong impression that there's actually someone in government fighting for you. And I think if people knew that there wasn't, they would be much more apt to organize in the streets and shut shit down, because that's the only way I think we're going to get anything now. And they'd be much more apt to vote third party. So if you have a conscience, I don't know how you could vote for this. This is a one-party rule. You know, it looks like two parties, but it isn't.
Let's go back to last year and let's say that COVID never happened. Let's say that George Floyd, like that incident never happened. Does Biden still win in November?
Isn't it ironic that after a whole summer of protests against police brutality and a call to defund them, that we then elect the guy who was the architect of the criminally racist criminal justice system that we have? The reason why Black and brown people are jailed right now at unbelievable higher proportional rates than they should be is because of Joe Biden and the crime bill. And then his vice president is California's top cop who bragged about putting truant kids and their parents in jail, which means poor people who had to be ordered to let people out of prison. And the reason why she wouldn't let people out of prison in California was because Kamala Harris's office said it would upset the prison labor system. She had to be ordered by a court 3 times to release the overcrowded prisoners, and she wouldn't be. So after a whole summer of that, Black people and white people protesting, that's who the Democrats gave you to vote for, and you fucking did. And you fucking did. I didn't vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I have, and so you get I knew what you were going to get. Joe Biden is up there refunding the cops again. Joe Biden ain't fucking doing any criminal. He's not going to help you. Joe Biden says what's wrong with Black people is they don't know lawyers and they don't have accountants. That's how demented Joe Biden is.
Yeah. I honestly think, like, looking back on things, like if those things didn't happen, I think that Trump would have won again, because Biden was just terrible. It's interesting to me how he lost Iowa, he lost New Hampshire, he lost Nevada, and then all of a sudden, boom, South Carolina, he wins that, and all of a sudden he's at the top of the race. That's questionable, and I think anybody should question that.
I don't think he would have won without that. You're right. To answer your question, you're right. That's how pathetic the Democratic Party is and corrupt.